Before we get to the story, I'd like to say thanks so much for visiting my new channel. I'm going to be uploading cosmic horror related stories every single day. So if that sounds good, please drop a like and don't forget to subscribe. It means a lot, especially when just getting started. I hope you enjoy the story. The boring machine died at 11:17 on a Tuesday night, and for about 30 seconds, the only sound in the tunnel was the echo of it powering down and the six of us catching our breath. Then the foreman, a stocky guy named Holt, clicked on his headlamp and walked up to check the drill head. I watched him crouch down, peer into the gap where the machine had stopped, and go completely still. "Hey," he said. Just that. "Hey." We crowded up behind him, through the ragged hole the drill had punched. Instead of rock and clay and the usual dark, there was open air, a cavern, big enough that our lights skimmed the near wall and vanished before they found the other side. Then the street lights came on. Not all at once, one by one, in a line that curved away from us and disappeared into the dark below. Orange-yellow lights flickered and buzzed and held. They lit up a road, a sidewalk, the face of a brick building with a barbershop pole out front that wasn't spinning but looked like it could. Nobody said anything for a long time. Darren was the first one to laugh, not a happy laugh, the kind that comes out when your brain doesn't know what else to do. "That's a city," he said. "That's an actual city down there." He wasn't wrong. We rigged a rope line to a support beam and dropped down one at a time. The climb was maybe 40 feet. When I hit the ground, I stood up and turned around and just stopped moving because there was no way to process it all at once. The street was wide enough for 2 lanes of traffic. There were cars parked along the curb, old boxy things from the 50s with chrome bumpers and white wall tires, not rusted out, not dusty, just sitting there like their owners had stepped inside for a minute. The streetlights ran as far as I could see in both directions. Storefronts lined the sidewalk, all of them dark behind their windows but intact. A hardware store, a pharmacy with a soda fountain counter visible through the glass, a diner on the corner with a neon sign that wasn't lit but read, in looping red letters, Carla's. The air smelled like rain. Not damp or stale the way underground spaces usually smell, but clean and faintly electric, like a storm was rolling in somewhere. Holt walked to the nearest car and put his hand on the hood. "It's warm," he said. None of us touched anything after that. The crew was 6 people including me. Me, Holt, Darren, Petra, a quiet guy named Voss who'd been with the company for 12 years and barely spoke, and a younger kid named Tully who'd been on the job for 3 months and was still in the phase where everything was exciting. Tully was already halfway down the block, shining his light into storefronts. "Stay together," Holt said, and Tully slowed down, but didn't stop. We walked. The street went on farther than it had any right to. Buildings on both sides, some of them 2 stories, some 3, all of them the same preserved mid-century style. A barbershop, a shoe repair, a small grocery with hand-lettered sale signs in the window, a post office. Everything was closed, but nothing looked abandoned. No broken glass, no graffiti, no vines or moss or water damage. Just a town at night, quiet and shut up tight, except that it was 2 miles underground, and none of us had ever heard of it. The diner was unlocked. Holt pushed the door open and held it, and we filed in. Booths along the window, a long counter with red stools, a pie case with 2 pies still in it, chocolate and cherry. The coffee mugs on the counter were half full. Darren leaned over and sniffed one. "It's not moldy," he said. Petra touched the seat of one of the stools and looked at her fingers. "No dust either," she said. "None at all." The jukebox in the back corner clicked, a mechanical sound, like a record arm resetting. We all looked at it. It didn't play anything. It just clicked once and went quiet again. I was looking at the jukebox when Voss said, quietly, "The curtains." I turned around. Through the diner windows, we could see the residential block across the street. Brick houses, small yards, porch lights on. Every single window had its curtains drawn. I scanned the whole block. Every one. Then the curtains in the second floor window of the house directly across from us moved. There was no breeze. The air in the cavern was completely still. "Where's Tully?" Petra said. We looked around. There were 5 of us in the diner. We spread out along the block calling his name, which I'll admit wasn't our best move. But panic has a way of making your decisions for you. Holt went left, Voss went right, and Petra and I went straight across to the residential street. Darren stayed at the diner entrance as a landmark. Tully's hard hat was sitting in the middle of the intersection 2 blocks down, perfectly upright, like someone had placed it there. His headlamp was still clipped to it, still on, pointing straight up at nothing. "Tully," Holt's voice echoed back from somewhere in the dark. Nothing answered. Then we heard footsteps. From inside the house on the corner, the one with the porch light on. Slow, even steps on a wooden floor somewhere above us, tracking from one end of the house to the other, and then stopping. Waiting. Petra grabbed my arm. I didn't pull away. The footsteps started again, crossing back the other way. I don't know exactly what made me look up the street instead of at the house. Maybe it was movement in my peripheral vision. But I looked, and at the far end of the block, standing under one of the street lights, there was a person. Except it wasn't quite. It was tall, too tall, the way something is too tall when it's been stretched rather than grown. It was wearing a dress shirt and slacks and leather shoes, all of it pressed and clean, like it was headed to Sunday church. Its face was turned toward us. I couldn't see the features clearly from that distance, but I could tell it was facing us, because it didn't move when we moved, just kept that blank pale oval aimed in our direction. Then a door opened somewhere behind us, and I spun around. Another one, stepping off a porch 2 houses down, same height, same wrongness, same clean old-fashioned clothes. It took 2 steps down to the sidewalk and stopped. Petra said my name very quietly. I looked back up the street. The first one was gone. I looked at the porch where the second one had been standing. Gone. Then Darren screamed from 2 blocks away where we'd left him at the diner, and we ran. He was standing in the middle of the street when we got back to him, pointing down the block. He wasn't hurt. He looked like he was about to be, though, because he was pointing at about a dozen of them. They were standing on both sidewalks, lining the street, like they were watching a parade, all facing us, all perfectly still except for the wrong kind of stillness, the kind that isn't peaceful but held, like something wound tight waiting to release. They were all dressed the same way, in clean pressed clothes from decades ago, and they were all too tall. The ones closest to us had faces I could see now. I wish I couldn't tell you what they looked like, but I can. They looked like faces that had been arranged by someone who'd heard a description of a face but had never actually seen one. The eyes were there, the mouth was there, but nothing was moving. No blinking, no expression shifting, just a surface that looked like a face the way a mask looks like a face. Holt was beside me. "The rope line," he said. "We get to the rope line right now." Nobody argued. The problem was, the rope line was in the other direction, and the street that led to it ran between the two lines of them. We moved fast. I kept my eyes straight ahead, and I did not look at any of them as we walked, and then jogged, and then ran. I could feel them the same way you can feel someone standing too close to you in the dark, that pressure of a presence your body understands before your brain catches up. One of them stepped off the curb about 10 feet in front of Voss, and he veered hard left without breaking stride, looping around it. It turned to follow him with his face, but his feet didn't move. We kept running. The rope line was where we'd left it, the end of it swinging gently under the breach in the cavern wall. Holt went first, then Darren, then Voss. Petra started up, and I was right behind her. That's when I heard the door to the City Hall building swing open. I didn't stop climbing, but I looked. The building was big, the biggest one on the main street. 3 stories with wide steps leading up to double doors. The doors were open now, and light was spilling out of them. Warm yellow light like from inside a house. Standing in the doorway was one of them, but this one was different from the others. Shorter, child-sized, wearing a small coat and a little hat, like a kid dressed up for a school photo. It raised one hand and held it up, palm out, not waving, just holding it there. I climbed. We got back up through the breach, and we didn't talk for a long time. We sat in the tunnel with our backs against the wall, and the sound of our own breathing and the orange glow from the streetlights below us filled the hole like a sunset that wasn't going anywhere. Holt eventually got on the radio. I don't know exactly what he said to the site supervisor because my ears were still ringing, but it included the phrase, "You need to come see this," 3 times. Nobody came that night. The supervisor thought he was drunk. We left the equipment, climbed out, and filed incident reports the next morning that I'm fairly sure went into a folder that went into a drawer that went into a room nobody opens. Tully never came back. The official explanation, the one that got typed up and distributed, was that a new crew member had become disoriented in the dark and exited through an alternate tunnel access and gone home without reporting it. Tully's family was told he'd quit without notice. I watched Holt's face when the site manager read that part out loud. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. They sealed the breach with a pour of concrete and pulled the boring machine out and rerouted the transit line half a mile to the east. Project delay due to geological complications. That was the phrase. I heard it so many times, it stopped meaning anything. Darren transferred to a site in another state 3 weeks after. Voss stopped showing up to work and didn't answer his phone. Petra and I still see each other sometimes, the way people who've been through something together keep circling back. Not because things are good, but because it's easier to be around someone who doesn't need it, explained. She's the one who told me about the City Hall. I hadn't told anyone what I'd seen in the doorway, but she'd been on the rope above me, and she'd looked too. She described the same child, the same coat, the same raised hand. "What do you think it meant?" I asked her. She shook her head. "I don't think it meant anything," she said. "I think it was just showing us it knew we were leaving." 6 weeks after the breach was sealed, I was taking the subway home from a job site on the north end of the city, late enough that the car was mostly empty. I was in the last car, half asleep, watching the dark tunnel wall blur past the window. The train slowed and stopped. I looked up. Through the window, I could see a platform, clean tile, good lighting, a row of benches, a sign on the wall in the same style as every other station in the system, the same font and colors and format. The station was called Carla's Corner. I'd never heard of it. In 12 years of working and living in this city, I had never heard of that station. I pulled out my phone and opened the transit map. It wasn't on it. The line I was on jumped from the stop before to the stop after with nothing in between. The doors opened. She was standing on the platform at the far end, near the stairs that led up to whatever was above. A woman in a yellow dress and white gloves, her hair pinned up in the style of someone's grandmother's old photographs. She was facing the train. She wasn't moving. The doors stayed open longer than they should have. I did not get off the train. I don't know how long we sat there, long enough that I gripped the seat bar with both hands and watched her, and she watched the train, and neither of us did anything at all. Then the doors slid shut, and the train moved, and the platform fell away behind us, and 30 seconds later, we pulled into the next station. The right one, the one that's been on the map for 40 years. I got off, and I sat on a bench on the platform, and I put my head in my hands. Here's the thing nobody's going to want to hear. Here's the part that I keep coming back to, that wakes me up at 2 in the morning and makes the whole dark apartment feel smaller than it is. The concrete pour that sealed the breach. I looked it up out of curiosity. The engineering specs, the crew rotation, the timeline. Standard pour, standard cure time, standard sign-off. The crew that did the pour filed a report, noting that while the concrete was being mixed, their equipment registered an air pressure change consistent with a large connected space on the other side of the wall. The project engineer wrote it off as residual settling, but there's a note at the bottom of the report added afterwards that I keep rereading. One of the pour crew wrote it, a guy whose name I don't recognize. It says, "Confirmed seal integrity, no breach, no access." And then under that, in different handwriting, smaller, like it was added later and whoever added it wasn't sure they should. Confirmed from both sides. I don't know what that means. I think I do though. I think the city isn't only down there anymore. I think whatever it took to keep it running for 70 years while nobody was looking has had enough of the dark, and I think when we broke through, we gave it something it had been waiting for. A door opens from both sides. That's just how doors work.